Welcome to The Explainer. You know that old saying, don't put the cart before the horse? Well, it turns out that's exactly what most of us do when it comes to our biggest goals. We think we have to feel motivated before we can act. Today, we're going to show you why that's completely backward and dig into the powerful idea that motivation, as we know it, is a lie. And let's just kick things off with this really powerful idea from Mel Robbins. I mean, think about it. At some point, we all got sold on this idea that we need to wait for inspiration, for the perfect mood, for some kind of magical spark to hit us. But what if that's the very thing that's keeping you stuck? What if waiting to feel ready isn't just a delay, but it's actually the biggest lie we tell ourselves? So, here's what we're going to cover. First, we're going to expose the motivation myth for what it really is. Then we'll take a peek inside our own brains to see the science behind why we procrastinate. And then we'll get to the good stuff, the powerful alternatives that actually work. Discipline, systems, and the simple, undeniable physics of taking action. All right, so let's dive right into our first section and tackle the heart of the problem here, the motivation myth. Why is this whole idea of waiting for a spark so wrong? Well, it's because we treat motivation like it's a prerequisite for doing anything, when in reality, it's almost always the other way around. Okay, so here's the fundamental misunderstanding, right? We have this picture in our heads of motivation being this, this magical heroic force that we just have to wait for. But the reality? It's just a feeling. It's an unreliable emotion that comes and goes with your mood, how well you slept, your stress levels, and relying on it is like trying to build a house on quicksand. And if you're wondering why it's so unreliable, well, look at this list. As health coach Dania Trapani points out, our motivation is under constant attack from, real life. I mean, how much sleep did you get last night? Are you stressed about work? What's your emotional state right now? All of these things are constantly draining your motivational battery, which makes it a terrible source of fuel. So, if motivation is this flaky thing we can't count on, our brain starts looking for a way out. And you know that feeling of, I'll just do it later? Turns out that's not just you being lazy, it's actually a feature of how our brains are wired. There's a really fascinating scientific reason why putting things off feels so right in the moment. So, a neurocomputational study back in 2022 actually put a name to this. It's a cognitive bias called temporal discounting. And what it is essentially is a little trick your brain plays on you. It discounts the effort of a future task, making it seem way less difficult than doing it right this second. So think about it for a second. When you're faced with something that requires real effort, going to the gym, starting that big project, what's that little whisper you hear in the back of your mind? Yep, that's the one. That is the simple little lie your brain tells you. It systematically underestimates how much effort future you will have to put in while totally overestimating the pain for present you. And the result? Procrastination feels like the most rational, logical choice you can make every single time. Okay, so where does that leave us, right? If we can't trust our feelings and our own brains are basically hardwired to put things off, what are we supposed to do? How do we actually make progress? And this is where former Navy SEAL Jocko Willink just comes in and flips the entire script. He argues that the solution isn't a feeling at all. It's discipline. And believe it or not, that discipline is what actually sets you free. See, Willink's whole philosophy completely redefines what we even think of as discipline. It's not about punishment or being super restrictive. It's really about creating structure. It's about building routines and taking ownership of your actions. And that structure, it gives you control, which in turn opens up all these new opportunities and builds the mental toughness to get things done no matter how you feel on a particular day. So discipline gives us that new mindset, right? It gives us the why. But to make it actually work day to day, we need a framework for the how. And that's where we need to shift our focus away from goals and onto something way more powerful. This is where author James Clear makes this absolutely brilliant distinction in his work on habits. A goal, that's the result you want, like losing 20 pounds or writing a book. But a system, that's the process you follow every single day. What you eat, your writing schedule. Goals are great for setting a direction, but systems are what actually get you there. This whole idea is captured perfectly by the legendary football coach Bill Walsh. He didn't obsess over winning the Super Bowl. He was obsessed with perfecting every single tiny detail of every single practice. He knew that if you just commit to the process, to the system, The score will take care of itself. And this right here is really the crucial point. Think about it. Every athlete at the Olympics wants to win a gold medal. Every person starting a business wants it to be successful. The goal isn't what separates them. The real difference is their commitment to a system, that daily process of improvement that actually creates results. All right, let's bring this all home. We've torn down the motivation myth. We've put discipline and systems in its place. Now for the final piece of the puzzle. Understanding the true cause and effect relationship between doing the work and actually feeling good about it. Which, brings us all the way back to that central dilemma. If you're not supposed to wait for that magical feeling of motivation to strike, what's the actual first step? What do you do? And here it is. This is the secret. This is the one thing most of us get completely wrong our entire lives. We've got the sequence totally backward. We think we need motivation in order to act. The truth is, you need to act in order to create motivation. Action is the spark, not the result of the spark. The best way to think about it is like a giant, heavy flywheel. That first push is the hardest part, but taking one small action, no matter how tiny, gets the wheel turning. That little bit of movement creates momentum. That momentum makes the next step just a little bit easier and builds your confidence. And that feeling of confidence and progress, that's what we eventually call motivation. It's a result of your action, not the cause of it. And that brings us right back to where we started, with Mel Robbins. Because real lasting change, it doesn't come from waiting for the mood to be right. It comes from the small, sometimes difficult decision to just act anyway. It's about deciding to put on your running shoes, or open that blank document, or make that phone call. So at the end of the day, the question you need to ask yourself isn't, how can I feel motivated? The real question is this: forgetting how you feel right now, what is one decision, one small action you can take today to start building the momentum you want in your life?